Hello.
Hi.
Hi, great to meet you all. I'm gonna wait for Robert's audio to come in. How are you guys doing?
Good.
I'm fine.
Good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. You know, it's-
Hi, Robert. Can you hear us?
Hello, yes.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to join today. I'm excited to kick off this focus group to really talk about your experience with app-based work. I am Allie. I'm going to be moderating this 1 hour session. And really briefly, I just wanted to kind of go around and do some quick introductions. So I'm here with my colleague Adam, who's just here to take notes. So he'll be in the background. But like I mentioned, I'm Allie. I'm based in New York. And I have an iPhone 8, which is really embarrassing because of how old and much it doesn't work anymore, but still love my iPhone. I'm going to pass it to you, Titus, to just give your name, where you're from, and what phone you have.
uh, I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I live in the South, and I'm 33 years old. And I got the brand new iPhone 16 Pro,
Ah,
256 gigabytes, which I got on my birthday last 2 weeks ago. Eventually,
nice. Super jealous there. That sounds amazing. I need to get the new one.
I already have it since my father and my sister took me to AT&T store a week ago. I got it.
Amazing.
You want to see? This
Ah,
is a
beautiful.
brand new iPhone that I just saw show on the commercial. 3 cameras, all that. Got for the last 2 weeks.
Amazing. Next, I'll pass it over to Brian.
Hi, my name's Brian. I'm from Michigan. I have an iPhone 11, and then I have an Apple Watch Series 2, which is pretty old. So yeah.
Nice. Great. And Robert?
Um, okay, so question before anything. So I actually own multiple phones, and that's a little complicated, like to answer specifically. But okay, I guess I'll just name them off. I own an iPhone 13 and an iPhone 11, as well as a Samsung S21 FE. So I'm a multi-user. Um, And I forgot to introduce, I'm Robert from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Nice. Super user over here. Great. Well, thanks again for all joining. And we're going to go through a few different areas. Again, this will probably take up the full hour, be done by 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we're just going to jump right in. I like to call on people just to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak, but also feel free to put in the chat any comments as well, meant to be more of a discussion, open. And just making sure that there are no right or wrong answers. Please feel comfortable to kind of just give your basic opinion. This is for internal purposes. So feel free to share all the opinions. Great. So to first start off, we really want to learn more about why you use apps for work. So what really brings you to apps to find work? What motivates you to use them? I'll start off with Robert.
Um, well, gosh, I'm going to say a little prior to like the pandemic. I think I was just looking for like side income, and there was a few apps at that time that I basically found while browsing on like social media, like the TELUS International company. That was like the first company that got me into like AI and like transcripting and like voiceovering, and then that led to like other companies like Pulse Voices and like Data Force and iTracks, like so many other companies, but those are like a few that I know are on my phone at the moment.
Great. So you really found it as like a side income to your other role of jobs that you have.
Yes.
Brian, what about you?
Yeah, it's just kind of piggybacking kind of off what Robert said. Kind of the pandemic kind of threw everybody kind of in like a more of a at-home based scenarios. So I did a lot for kind of Upwork. I did some for that, and I've had previous jobs where I used Slack and I don't know if this kind of talks about communication tools as well with your job if you have online. So I did a lot for things for Slack and a lot of for Upwork, and I did a job for a while there during the pandemic. I did something for something called Webinar Inc., which is a kind of like where I did scheduled job interviews online through the app through an app they had it as well, which is kind of an app-based program. So yeah, so pretty much I did a lot of that for 2 or 3 years, especially during the pandemic because all that stuff got shut down in the world, so everything is pretty much more at home based. So that's pretty much my major experience with app-based work.
Cool. And Titus, what about you? What brings you to apps to find work?
Well, eventually, I've been discovering something about give me a real job in person after the pandemic was over because I have not gotten a job before the pandemic hit by the early of March 2020. Definitely an opinion from Brian and Robert said all the pandemic, all the store was shut down and main office were all in person enclosed. They were all stuck working from home during the pandemic about 4 years ago. They have not gone their home before they returned the home before they returned the office. After that pandemic was done, they returned back to work in person after they got working from home. And they were all sad and they were disappointed. They did not want to go back work in person. That was kind of hurtful and massive substance because I was kind of the opinion to get my own job, but if I went on getting paid, I eventually stopped going to hospitality industry and going to work in the restaurant as a busser and dishwasher and tip person. Doing right now, I've just started working at the restaurant and hospitality 2 weeks ago at Logan, Tuscaloosa. That helped me get me a real job by getting out of the house and going to work during the day, lunch shift, all that. That helped me joy by supporting my family and supporting my cousin, everything to have to get all the expenses paid that I've earned for a whole year eventually. That's what brought me joy after the pandemic was over with. To find a real one to in compromise with something that I accomplished with everything that I've done for years.
Yeah,
My mom helped me
great.
that. So my parents.
That's great to hear. Yeah, glad that, app-based work has really become a much bigger thing during the pandemic and really helped a lot of people. So I guess what would you say is the thing you like the most about app-based work? I'll start with you, Brian.
I just like the accessibility. I think it's pretty much, some jobs you can do pretty much anywhere. Like I said, if I was on vacation or maybe like if I had a power outage, I can maybe go to a different, or something happens with the internet or the power outage, I can go to a different place to use the internet or, if I have to. So I like pretty the accessibility and then be able to kind of transfer from place to place if needed would probably be the one major thing if anything, and just the fluidity of it, be able to kind of have the accessibility to kind of do it when you can and have more of a freedom versus being stuck in maybe at a brick and mortar building where you only have a set amount of time where you can work and this that and the other. So I think basically if it comes out maybe the fluidity and the accessibility of it.
Yeah. What about you, Robert?
Oh gosh. To piggyback on Brian there, I mean it's the flexibility. Like I'm doing a project for Dataforce currently they basically gave me 2 weeks to actually do it. And I mean that's more than enough time to do the project because I'm like 75% done with it after doing it for like an hour. So like with the rest of that time, it's just basically free time.
Great. And I guess by flexibility, how would you like define flexibility?
Uh, I guess more freedom and ability to do things that I want in my life. So I can go do, my general hobbies like gaming or watching something on TV or playing on my guitar and I don't constantly have to do the work or think about it really.
Great. And Titus, I guess, what would you say is the one thing that you love most about app-based work?
App-based work that I've gonna watch it fine on my phone and my laptop while I go to Indeed.com searching what kind of job would I like to work at, because I will do the retail or hospitality, because I will do the hospitality because hospitality is so much better that I've looked at since I've been on the Indie app on my phone, and go work in a hotel and restaurant band and work at a grocery store, because I want to do it like a hotel and restaurant industry that I've discussed in my whole life, because I'll be thinking of everything. When I'm done at my job, I'll have to go to home and relax a little bit, get on the pill, check the emails, and watch television, and want to take care of my children and my niece, my nephews on my sister's side, and everything. Most of I play a little music a little bit and everything while I'm on
Great.
break.
So I guess my next question is, if you were to sign up for a new app-based, work-based app today, how long would you really expect it to take before you start earning some money? Brian, I'll start with you.
On average, it's maybe a couple weeks, depending on the project. Like when I used to do work for a webinar, it would be kind of project based. So we'd have a certain amount of it would have a job fair. So I have to call all the applicants. So it would be, from a certain time when I have to start to when the job fair actually would be. So it would be, let's say I would start 2 weeks before the actual job fair to call the applicants to attend the job fair. And then when the job fair actually was, it was kind of like a 1 day event. So I'd say maybe around 2.5 weeks, give or take, I would get paid.
And Robert, what about you?
So like hypothetically, I'm signing up for a new app, um, and like when they're going to send me I guess the first project, uh, I'd say within like maybe a week and a half. Typically that's like the time frame that I would expect.
Cool. All right. Great. Um, we're right on time for the next type of topic. So now I want to kind of really spend some time hearing about your experience with these apps in a little bit more detail. I guess starting with you, Brian, I want to learn more about like the apps. I know you've already mentioned a few, but the apps you've worked with, and maybe talk a little bit about the best app you've worked with, and kind of what you liked most about it and why.
Let's see. Probably when I used to work for Webinar, they always kind of have a set of when to pick from your scheduling. When the next job fair was coming up, you can kind of work from there. So I'd say like the scheduling aspect of the app, I liked. I kind of knew what project was coming ahead of time, so I can kind of get in there and plan my time around it. So that was kind of a big thing. I kind of liked, it always gave, a good set, a link to the Google Doc of all the applicants they had to call, which was good too. So pretty much did all the heavy lifting for me, and I pretty much was the one kind of making the calls and getting everything set up. So I enjoyed the accessibility of it, the being able to access all the information I needed to do the job right away and all that good stuff. So pretty much that's, what pretty much the main features I enjoyed of it.
Great. And what about you, Robert? Favorite app and kind of why it worked so well?
Oh gosh, this is a tough one because I have a few of them. But hmm. I think TELUS
Mention.
International was okay. So this will be a multi-answer. TELUS International is my favorite because they connected me with like big companies like Apple and Google for their projects. Um, but payment wise, I mean, Pulse Voices I think is probably one of the best because they typically pay within like a week, and that's extremely fast, and they have a very nice customer service, and like they handle the job so well. So those two apps are, yeah, my favorite.
Cool. Now kind of go on the other end. What was an experience you've had that working with an app that was kind of really bad, and what really made it such a terrible experience? I'll throw it back to you, Brian.
Let's think. I've had problems with like Indeed in the past, Indeed.com, applying for jobs and stuff. I've had a lot of jobs that were kind of either expired or they weren't hiring anymore, which is kind of frustrating. So that would be kind of one thing. Sometimes going through Indeed to get jobs is kind of like hit or miss, kind of a shot in the dark. So I guess it's kind of one good thing one bad negative experience I had with like a work-based app, and I can think off the top of my head, sometimes, like I said, sometimes they're expired. Some of the jobs have been, off the stopped hiring, and the app didn't update it for some reason or another. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, so that's probably one experience off the top of my head.
Got it. Yeah, you, Robert.
Hmm. Um, hmm. I guess in the past, when I did like some work for iTracks, their customer support was just not very helpful at like remedying an issue. Um, and I found that to be unpleasant, and it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth to work with that company very frequently. Um, Even though like I will occasionally work with them, it's just I know their customer support is just not so great.
Yep.
I have a couple of follow-ups. So thinking about the customer support, like what's an example of something that you were kind of like, hey, like what the heck? Like I did this thing and I needed support. Like what was that experience like for you?
Uh, it was just very unhelpful. I mean, I basically did a project and like I provided even proof, and then they're kind of stating that like it wasn't finished, and then like it was just like a battle there. Then I redid like a portion of it for them to just kind of remedy the issue, but I still think in that instance like support was not so helpful.
Got it. So you did something, you spent time against it. They kind of
Yes.
probably use the very impersonal process to say, hey, we have proof that you didn't, and then you had to go back and redouble it, and then they maybe didn't.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that's super. And what was like the format of that? Like, how do you actually go about like, was there a phone number and somebody actually picked up? Because a lot of these companies, if I think about like an Uber or a Lyft or whatever, it's like what you're saying is actually like kind of positive if you can even get in touch with somebody versus
Yeah.
having a system.
It was through like Gmail, but I think during that time they kind of took a really long time throughout the day. And like thinking past wise, I've spoken to their customer support so many times where some of the people like communicate with me in like a minute's time, like very quickly. But that person was just taking like a few hours too long.
Gotcha. And just one like general question. I know a lot of the work that both of you are talking about is related to like maybe remote opportunities that you're doing from home. Have you worked with like any of the kind of big like gig economy apps like either an Uber, Lyft, Instacart, Postmates, any of those ones that are more in like let's say the driving or delivery or like brick and mortar type jobs?
I
No,
never have.
gotcha. Okay, yeah, I mean, curious to hear about general experiences, but was just curious about if you had anything with those specific ones. I guess the question is if you're interested in app-based work, like why haven't you looked into some of those? Like, are you just not interested in that type of work specifically? Or you pay too low?
I'm not a fan of driving. Simple as that. Going from place to place, using my own gas, this, that, and the other. So that would be, I know it's kind of a simplistic answer, but
No,
not a big fan. I'm more of a fan of just being like in my own zone, in my home, working, just me and, you know, dealing with the project I have to deal with rather than having to drive and deal with traffic and all that nonsense. So that would be basically a simplistic answer. I'm sorry
no,
if it's too simple.
no.
Okay.
Oh yeah, as Ali said, there's no right or wrong answers. We're just trying to understand better.
For myself, I mean, I think it's just payment wise and like word of mouth. I've heard from some people that like the payment isn't so great with like Lyft and Uber. And like for every let's say $20 that they make, they have to give half of the money away to like the company, and that sounds like a horrible deal to me. And some people I know are basically committing to that job, trying to make $400 a day, and that's working like basically all day, where you have no time to do anything else but drive around and deliver people everywhere. Um, versus like the jobs that I'm doing remotely can take like 30 minutes to like an hour or 2 hours of my time, and I'm making what they make in a whole day, basically, with far less time. That's why I prefer these remote jobs.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that as well. Like, yeah, some spots for Uber and some spots for like Postmates are a lot hotter than others. Like where I live, I maybe have to travel, a half an hour on my way to get to certain areas where it actually, where I get a lot of, um, opportunities to, deliver and stuff. So it also depends on where you live as well. The hotter areas, you probably get more hits versus like if you live in a area that doesn't have a lot of traffic. That's another thing why I would not want to take it as well. You know.
Yeah.
No, super helpful. I guess kind of digging in more about like concerns that you have with work-based apps. Love to learn more about like what would be kind of would stop you from downloading these apps. I know you mentioned kind of the payment already and distant and wanting to be remote work, but I guess anything else that you have concerns with using some of these apps or downloading them?
Um,
Oh, geez. Well, there was one company I just thought of it. It was a while ago where I had to like go shop in person at like a Walmart, but it was a very specific item that was like totally unavailable. Had to drive around town to like a totally different Walmart, wasted a bunch of gas and time, money, and like the company wasn't happy for that specific item. Um, but like that experience turned me off to that company, and it made me uninstall their app literally, and I left like a horrible review for them. Um, but that sort of experience and like yeah, it would just make me uninstall an app and never reinstall it.
I'm curious on that one, like, so two questions maybe. So like one, were you surprised after that happened based on like everything you learned that like did you do any research on the app? Were you kind of like, hey, maybe this is shady? Like, were you surprised that it was pretty weird?
Well, no, no, no. So I've done previous projects before with many other companies that are kind of similar, where I guess it's a type of secret shopping. Like you go in there and get specific items and then leave. Um, but I've done that before, and this company was no different. But just when I was interacting with their support and like told to get this other item or to like go to a different store, and like they weren't going to basically reimburse me for doing so, and I think all of that experience it left such a sour taste, and I I hated that company after that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was gonna say like what could they have done better, but I guess just
I mean reimburse me basically for gas and like my at least I don't know, throw me I don't know, a quarter of credit at least for trying, because I did try. I got like multiple items, but they didn't.
Yeah, I guess like looking back, did you see any red flags about the company or the app itself, the technology, or any other pieces of it?
Looking back, there was some bad reviews, I think on Google for the company, like a few, like maybe two or three. But they had mostly positive reviews, so yeah, it didn't seem too sketchy at the time.
Brian, what about you? What any concerns that you could think of that would
um, I had to do I can't even think of the name of the company, but it was a long time ago. I had to do a project where I had to do like a photograph project where I had to do take different pictures in different poses and different from different objects. And I submitted my work, which only took like a couple days. And apparently, you had to get a certain amount to cash out to get paid for it. And I didn't know that going ahead of time. Maybe I didn't read the fine print or anything. So that's kind of one reason I was kind of like, that should have been more obvious in the beginning that you have to cash out to get paid to other than getting paid per project. And I was like, I can't even, that was so long ago, but that's probably one instance that was kind of like buyer beware or maybe app user beware in that situation. Like, I think if you're going to do a project, you should get paid right then and there, not have to quote unquote build up to be able to cash out. So that's kind of so that off the top of my head, I can think of.
Yep, definitely like having clear expectations of what you're getting into.
Yeah, this kind of stuff that's kind of more simple and concise versus kind of like, this is the project and this is way at the bottom fine print stuff that you need to read that is very important to know if we want to get paid, to know the stuff ahead of time. So that's kind of something on top of my head that I can think of.
I guess if you were looking for a new work app, like how would you go about looking for an opportunity? I like resources online or friends and family, like what would be kind of the thought process there?
I think Google usually is pretty up to date. Indeed, like I kind of mentioned before, I've had kind of bad experiences for in the past, but Google, I kind of pretty good. I think if you Google, just kind of Google search something and kind of read reviews, you pretty much get a good idea, yay or nay of what you want to do. And I think Google is pretty much always, I think, a good indicator when it comes to looking for any type of app-based work.
So you'll just Google like the company name and then
Yeah, and just kind of give me, and kind of read the reviews. I kind of just has always kind of something that is, people are always going to have negative views about everything.
course.
Not everybody's going to be happy about everything. Everything's going to be like 5 stars. But I think if it's more more nay than yay, I think you pretty much get a good idea that's probably not the best opportunity to pursue. So that's kind of like one thing that I kind of always look for.
I do feel like sometimes when like there's negative reviews, right? Like I agree that especially now, like people kind of complain about
Mhm.
like how do you feel? Let's say it's like a really negative review. So let's say like Robert's example, it's like, he thought he did something or your example, and like you have to like argue with them about whether or not you should get paid. How do you feel when the company like responds to that? Is that like enough usually to like if they have like a really thoughtful response, would that like help would that negate a bad review? Or is that something that you just kind of be like, no,
Um,
they're just
it,
trying to
it
like
yeah, it kind of, in my kind of gives me a good idea that maybe they're very receptive to criticism and maybe doing better. Maybe that would change it a little bit. I think that, if they kind of just said, hey, we don't usually, if they kind of are able to explain themselves or maybe explain, hey, this is usually, sorry, you had this bad experience. This is what we can do. This is what we try to do better. I think that's kind of a good thing. So yeah, that would definitely change my opinion for the company as a whole if they kind of read the reviews, kind of put their own insight, put the insight into them to kind of maybe do better as a company. So yeah, definitely would change my opinion if I read a company responding to a negative review, in the hopes of maybe having that negative reviewer contact them to make to pursue to see what's wrong. So that, yeah, that's definitely would be a positive thing for me to see.
thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess thinking again, just overall, would there be anything specifically that you saw that would instantly turn you off from an app or a work opportunity through an app? Like information based, the apps of word of mouth, or just anything that would really make you never deal with the company?
I think if I read, can I go? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, like from initial kind of download point.
Okay. Do you mean like as far as like researching it or initial download and then you mean like
Exactly.
researching the company?
Yes.
Okay, if I read a bunch of reviews where they mentioned how the pay was an issue, getting my pay, receiving pay, pay would be number one. I think that, if you're dealing with a company that's not going to pay you or have issues with the pay or the hours you logged in and kind of disputing that, that would be a major red flag in my book, because that's, everybody everybody has like passion projects in their life, but I think everybody wants to get paid for their work. So I think that if pay is the number one issue in the reviews, then I think that's definitely something I would take a second guess of wanting to work with any company.
What about you, Robert?
I mean, typically for like a new company that I'm just hearing about, and usually how I discover them is like an ad on like my either smart TV or like on social media. Come across it and like I'll see a few comments, and I'll check the review count, and then I'll Google the company like okay, this is like an assured company, and then look up their Trustpilot and their BBB page. Um, those are like the first two places I will look. Make sure that it is 4 or 5 stars. That is a really good thing. If it's lower than like 3, I would be worried and like think this company is like they have a lot of bad reviews. They're probably scammy in some way. Or I don't know, like their user experience is just horrible and nobody's getting paid. People are just working and like they're all ticked off. Um, yeah, that's typically what I would do.
Great. Now I want to kind of talk about, let's say you found this app and it's made it through your vetting process to actually download it, and now you're signing up. I want to know kind of like what information you would expect to instantly start putting in the app to like get set up. I'll start with Robert on this one.
Basic information like my name, email, phone number, and possibly where I live. That's generally like the basic details.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, kind of piggyback on what Robert spoke about. Yeah, it's just availability, work location, my basic contact info, stuff like that. So I think it's pretty much availability is a big thing too. I think that kind of more mentioning a lot of these jobs, like I kind of circling back to the beginning, have the fluidity and flexibility to kind of work when you want is important. So yeah, availability and this kind of work location is definitely important. So yeah, definitely that's a few things I definitely would see having to sign up for when I eventually log in and put in when I eventually sign up. So.
Is there any information that would instantly kind of like concern you if they asked anything like too detailed or just specific that you would feel like is a red flag if they asked off the bat?
Social security information like that's a no-go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely Social Security would be, all these, yeah, I don't know, off the rip would definitely be an issue. Banking information, I guess that you definitely, a lot of these jobs pay direct deposit, would be it. Yeah, all the ones I've dealt with direct deposit. Getting personal checks from companies, I'm kind of wary of too. I'd rather just deal with direct deposit than actually getting a physical check in the mail, because that definitely is always something that could be a crapshoot of what would happen if you deposited and it bounced or something like that. So yeah, so definitely, I definitely would make sure I always got paid by direct deposit, not a physical check.
So to be clear, you would not find it weird if they asked for your banking information.
No, to be honest, I have no issue with that because I'd say most jobs, any job pays with direct deposit. Most all jobs do these days. So yeah, I don't think that would be too off weird. Actually, it'd be more weird if I actually just got paid physical checks. I think I'd be more leery of that, to be honest. I know it's kind of maybe sounds kind of weird that I would be more leery of having my less banking information, more physical check. But I feel if I'm actually getting physical checks, I'm more worried about that than actually having my banking information. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. What about you, Robert? Anything that would really like turn you off instantly?
Outside of social security information, I mean, hmm. I guess probably well, this is more of a preference. I would prefer for them to have like a PayPal, Venmo, or like Cash App connection. As like also to the alternative of banking information, just as a security measure, because I I don't completely trust like every single app that's work based. And yeah, like I would connect one of my side PayPal accounts and not my main, just to be sure, like just to make sure that this company's, not trying to do anything, or yeah, first. And like after that first payment and like everything's safe and sound, uh I guess then I'll trust it like with other information.
Yeah, I guess digging in a little bit more to trust, I guess, there be anything that would really make you more quickly trust one of these payment apps other than kind of, or work apps, other than going through a whole job and then getting paid? Like any information or checks that they could do to help build that trust more quickly?
Real testimonials for like that are video based, not just text little stub things that I see on websites. It would be actual genuine people talking about their experience, using the apps. You see that with like other gig based jobs, with that. I mean, I've seen it even for like the driving economy a lot, but like for technical, more remote, it's not that you see that so often. You see more just basic text. And I think I need to see and hear like what the people's experience are, rather just than text.
Makes sense. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Definitely testimonials. I think being transparent with questions I ask them, if I have any questions or concerns about the work or, the pay, then being more, transparent instead of, not being very cryptic with their answers, which is always kind of shady. So yeah, it's definitely just being transparent up front and kind of, piggyback on what Robert said about being, people talking about testimonials about like, their previous experience. So yeah, so definitely, I definitely be, this the company that's going to be transparent and answer my questions and be quick to answer and not have to, ask them a question and have to wait 3 days and ask them again. That would be frustrating. So yeah.
Like, going back to thinking about the app that you've downloaded and now you've put in some of your basic information to create your account. I guess, how would you feel about now doing maybe a process for a little bit of a interview, like to get your account kind of set up to work across these different kind of work opportunities? Like what type of interview process would you expect, or would you expect one at all, or what format would you want that to be in?
Well, it would be kind of similar to what I did for TELUS International in like the past. It was an onboarding where they do like a one-on-one with one of the people from the company, and it's maybe like 15-20 minute talk. And that was the process. It was that interview and a video based on like a Google Meet. Alternatively, I know other companies might prefer like WebEx or Zoom, or like Discuss.io. One of those three companies. But that's how I would basically guess one of the companies might do it that way.
Two questions about that. So one, was that paid? The interview?
Well,
You remember?
the after process was paid. That initial like onboarding, I don't think was, no.
Got it. And I think the other question I have is like, in order for you to go through all the motions and like actually, find a time and schedule, like,
Mhm.
what do you think is the requisite, like, so you're obviously putting your information out there, your bank account or your address, your work experience, all the basic stuff
Yes.
about. And then you're making the next leap, which is you're actually gonna show up and, on time for this interview. Like, what is the stuff that you expect before that, before you make that commitment, that you would want to see from that company? Is it like understanding your total earning potential? Is it having a job already kind of pre-assigned so that by the time you're done with that process, you sort of know what to expect? 'Cause I think it's
Yeah,
like
having a
lots of
pre-assigned job is definitely what I would expect. Um, and that company actually does well, they used to sort of do that sort of thing back a few years ago. Now I think the process is a little different, where the projects are more infrequent and not as organized.
How would you feel about that process if instead of it with a person, it was with like a AI assistant, or potentially it was like you maybe uploading like a selfie video? Would that be weird?
It'd be weird, but like it's not like out of the uncanny valley thing. Like I've done s- I mean I did an interview with an AI before for a company, and I mean it's kind of like in rep for me.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I guess what about you, Brian? What would you
Yeah,
kind
I
of
have no issue with that. I've done interviews where I've done one like a video interview, and then a recruiter will look at it, and then I actually speak to the recruiter. So that's not an issue.
Selfie
Yeah,
video?
yeah, it was kind of like a self. It was like it would have a series of questions, and then you'd have time to record your answers
Oh
and
yeah.
take a couple takes to record them, and then you would go to the next series of questions, speak to the camera, record them, and then the recruiter would look at the answers and then contact you from there. So I have no issue with that. That's not an issue dealing with that, dealing that part of it.
I think the
But
same question. I was like, what would you need from that company to know before you invest the time and energy in that process?
definitely, kind of like I said, payback on Robertson before. Definitely to have a pre-assigned project, knowing I'm going to be working going in. I definitely would not want to be in a situation where I have major downtime. Which is understandable depending on the economy and depending on the projects and stuff. But if I'm waiting like a couple weeks between projects, it's okay. If I'm waiting a couple months, that's going to be an issue. So yeah, so definitely, knowing going in, I'm going to be working, and the gap between another project would not be an extended period of time where I'm like not working for like a month. That definitely would not like that. A couple weeks, I'd say would be acceptable. A month
Got
would
it.
not be.
So it's like you'd want to make sure that you know what's like the first earning opportunity you have, but
Hmm.
also have that look kind of immediately after that. Like if it
Yep.
was, I know a lot of the work both of you guys are talking about is like project based, but let's say it was
Hmm.
shift. It sounds like you'd want to make sure you had access to like that first shift, but also know what's to come
Yeah,
after that.
what's on the horizon, what's coming up next. Because I feel that if you're, I would lose a lot of faith in a company quickly if I was constantly being told one thing and I eventually got in there and it was just months in activity. It's like, come on, it's like, you're wasting my time. Selling me a dream on something, and then turn around and I start working and it's just dead air. Nothing for months at a time. It's like,
Yeah. Got it. Cool. Thanks.
yep, no problem.
Yeah, I guess going back to how comfortable you would feel putting in information into this app, what if the app required, I guess, like a background check? How comfortable would you be to kind of completing that before even doing any job or work, project-based work with the company?
Would it be a job background or a criminal background? Just
Um,
background check across the board.
yeah, across the board.
I have no issues with that. I think that, it's just no issues at all. I think criminal background, depending on the work, I think if you're dealing with, personal information, dealing with any type of anything like that, I definitely understand like criminal background checks would definitely be applicable. But yeah, I have no issues with background checks at all.
What about you, Robert? Would that kind of be like nerve-wracking, scamming, like red flag?
Uh, I wouldn't say it's scammy. I'd actually say the opposite. It's more verifiable and just kind of is trying to assure me that this company is like more legitimate. So I think I would be fine with it if it were to happen for this potential app.
So let's say you've created your account, you set up, you did a background check, you've put in your availability. What other information would you now want to use the app or see on the app? Is it, videos learning more about the opportunities the app has? Is it just exploring the app yourself? Is it just more testimonials? Like what would kind of be the next thing you would want to start seeing on the app?
I think direct contact with any type of customer service or support would be important. If I have questions regarding the app or the gig, something so that type of I could reach out and touch somebody quick, at least in a couple days, not having to wait long period. So yeah, definitely the accessibility, customer support, or any type of higher up I can speak to, you know, if I have any questions along the way, because not, because if I had to sit there and just constantly, shoot out emails regarding a question that was very benign and I wasn't getting no feedback regarding it, that'd be very frustrating. So.
How would you feel if you like watched a video that told you a lot of information about like getting paid and setting up and next steps, and then it took you to like an FAQ page with just more resources? Would you still feel like you really needed to talk to someone and get support?
To an extent, yes. I feel like, FAQs, kind of, sometimes they're too simplistic. Sometimes I have a question that's maybe beyond that, and if I can't talk to somebody, either, through an app or even through maybe possibly a phone call, that'd be very frustrating for me, on my end. So yeah, I definitely would always want that accessibility to be able to reach out and touch somebody if I need to.
Robert, what would you say, I guess, the next step after your account creation, the next information piece you would want to start to see and explore from the app?
I think literally what I've done in past for a lot of these apps is check out the gigs and see what's available. Basically, I'm someone who is like that. Like I immediately want to get to work, and I got to see what they have. So for me, it's checking out the opportunities, and then maybe like if I don't see anything, I'll scroll around the rest of the website and like look at like if they do have any text reviews or live video testimonials on the website somewhere. Then I might go to like YouTube, see if they have any there, if there's like not many on the actual website.
I guess, how important is it to you to like have time to explore on your own, or want like more of a guided kind of step-by-step exploring the app, showing you where to go, like when, and click like through it with a help assistant?
I don't think I would need that, honestly, because I'm so used to using so many of these types of apps to where it's like my first nature, and I just don't really need help.
Yeah, what about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty, hip, lack of a better word, on apps and think, going through stuff and figuring things out. I'm not too jaded in that regard. So yeah, I definitely would be able to kind of find stuff on my own if needed.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's intuitive anyway to know to find the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Great. I guess my next question, and just anything else you guys would want to say to that would make an app more trustworthy and just make you want to use it for app-based work. I know we mentioned payment and customer support, but anything else that you feel like wasn't mentioned that would really kind of have an app garner your trust and really get you excited to work with it?
I guess the types of companies that have worked with, like, let's say this potential company, a lot of the apps I've used, they'll put it labeled on like the website or app, like, that they've worked with like Microsoft and like Apple, or, to name a bunch of other companies. That's generally what I would take notice of. And I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. And then also like listing, I guess, all of the types of gigs that they take part in. Like it could be game testing or play testing, voiceover work, or like transcripting like data. Those are just some of like the examples of like what I would probably go towards. And I know those are more fun and like not extremely hard work, but yeah. If I see those labels, I mean that's what would attract me.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, kind of like kind of piggyback on what Robert said, kind of brand recognition as well. If I know that a company works with a lot of major brands that I recognize with, like Apple or anything like that, I would definitely be more advantageous for me to work with them. So yeah, pretty much brand recognition in a way, and like I said, making sure that, kind of circling back on what I mentioned before, making sure there's a lot of potential projects lined up. If I see there's a project, that starts, October 21st, and then nothing starts up to the end of, the middle of November, then that's kind of throws me off. But like I said, if there's kind of just in a, projects just lined up and ready to go, then it's kind of just something I kind of would look for. That kind of get me to be positive about the experience going in.
Yeah, makes sense. When you're looking at kind of the projects or the shifts or the availability of work, are you looking for longer term opportunities, or does it excite you to see shorter, 1 day, a couple hours project based or work shifts?
The times of the project really don't matter as long as it's continuous and there's no long gaps. Like I said, a couple weeks is not an issue, but a month I'd have an issue with. So like if it's like a couple day project, and then a couple days later another one project starts, that's not an issue. If it's like 2 weeks, and then after that, maybe a couple days lapse, and there's another one that's 2 weeks, that's not an issue at all. But so that's pretty much, as long as there's not separated by a big gap between each one, that's not an issue.
What about you, Robert? I guess timing of kind of the gigs.
Well, I'm actually used to doing both types. So for me, like, I think I do short-term gigs more often that pay like a more massive amount. And but there's been some projects that are a couple $1,000s that I've done like a month long that are like so worth it, and they're more fun, like game tests. And I mean, I would commit to it basically, like whether it be short or even like a month long or even longer than that. Somebody who would just stay committed to doing the work regardless.
Great. I guess thinking about your typical behavior, how often would you like log in to check an app to see the opportunities? Do you like check in the morning? Would you check in like multiple times a day? Kind of how does that work for you?
Typically, I have to get an email or like a pop-up, and then it's like, hey, there's like a new opportunity, either an email or that pop-up, like I'll get like a little notification, and then I go on the app, and that could be morning or like the afternoon generally.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I just put on the notifications to get a banner, on the phone, and then pursue it from there. That's pretty much how it usually works. So I rarely ever would get emails. So definitely just be a banner, and then I would just accept it from there. So yeah, that's definitely something that's always been prevalent.
How do you feel about getting like text notifications from an app?
Yeah, that's okay. I'd rather get a banner notification. Text notifications sometimes go to like my phone will like junk it, and I won't even like notice it. So yeah, definitely getting a banner would definitely be better than text messages, especially this time of year. I get a lot of political texts as well, so definitely kind of be able to know that I definitely am getting from what I'm working for versus just getting some random text would definitely be a lot better for me personally.
Great. Well, kind of gone through all the content. I don't know, Adam, if you have any other last remaining questions.
Oh, it's been super great to hear from both of you. Appreciate your opinions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really helpful. Thank you for the time. And you should see the Amazon gift card payment within the next week in your emails.
Okay, sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you for your guys' time. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All righty.
You too. Have a good one. Bye.